Actually, one other thing I want to say is that because I'm trying to work out like why my mental state is in such a bad condition, and I think it's not only just after I realized I couldn't get a job. It's not just that I couldn't get a job. It's that when I started working, I started doing massage, and therefore I was constantly faced with either if I was doing an outcall, people who have a house, incredibly big house, feeling jealous over what they have and what I don't have, me asking, do I actually like these people? Are they actually, interested in me? Do they care about me? Do they want to know me? And there was a, I can't really say, but I don't think I liked anyone. I don't think I liked anyone. And when you're constantly doing a job that you don't like, don't want to do, surrounding yourself by people who you don't particularly like. I'm saying that there's Asian people, there's a lot of Asian people, but I can't really remember the clients in London, but I think because I wanted a house, because I wasn't able to get onto the housing market, because I was living in a tiny studio flat, I felt more like a slave. And the clients that I saw, well, I actually stopped working when I first moved into that. But, before that, I was living in my parents' flat, no one was really helping me. And I guess people who were coming to have a session were helping me in a way, but I didn't want to do that job. I didn't like that job. I was feeling isolated because of being forced to do this job. And it's just like, how are you supposed to like people or get on with society when you're living in your parents' junked up flat, parents that you argue with? I argue with my mum all the time. My dad's never around. And then you're feeling almost like a prostitute because all the calls are just people asking for sexual services. And you do sex? No, 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 no. Oh, okay. Hand job? No, 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 no. Body to body, and just a long list. And then you say, no, I can't. Can you sit on me? It's like, well, I guess I can sit on you. And then they'll start asking for more sexual stuff. It's like as soon as you say yes to anything, they'll start seeing that as a way of jumping on. And so just constantly having all these conversations where you just start seeing the world as being a bunch of perverts. I think, I've got into a really bad mental state when I was working in London. And I think 3 years of being on the dole, followed by being forced to do massage, followed by feeling like a slave, feeling like you can't pay for the rent, and then you find out you're God, and then you're just like, right, I've got £50,000, they ain't gonna ignore me for a long time, and then and they did exactly that. I'm just living off. I inherited 20,000, so I kind of that cost that I was able to spend my rent on that, but just surrounded by so many people, millions and millions of people, and yet knowing that not one of these people want to help you, or you can't talk to them, or you can't get a job from them, or just feeling perverted by them because of the perverted nature of every single person you're in contact with. It's just it's like, how can you like people when all they see you as is someone they want to wank over? Like that's the sort of mentality that I was in, because that was the only job and the worst thing is if you are doing a job for massage where you invite people into your house, give them a massage, and then allow them to finish, you've also got the added shame that if you tell anyone what you're doing, they're going to blame you for doing your job. You're the one that's the problem. You're the one that's not getting a proper job. You're the one that's perverted and sick, when really you're actually getting all these calls. I'm not calling them, they're calling me. They're the ones that are perverts, they're the ones that are sick. And then to have to go to, there's this spa that I joined, but to know that I couldn't tell anyone that I did massage, because they would just, or if I did, I'd have to kind of like make out that it's just professional massage only. But to having the shame to think that I can't tell anyone anything because they're going to look down at me, even though I'm forced into a job that I don't want to do. And then just feeling so disgusted with everyone, whilst knowing that you can't tell anyone anything about you because they will be the ones that are disgusted with you for doing something you don't want to do, whilst knowing that you're actually feeling like a slave because all your money is being spent on the fucked up housing system, all formed by a bunch of people in government who just like being rich. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know why this world is so fucked up and so mentally ill and so fucking retarded and so full of mentally ill people that just want to wank. I don't know why there's so many sexually charged idiots in this world. But this is just the world that I'm in. And then when you start feeling this way. You know, you don't want to go to your local newsagent and spend £2 on some milk when you know you can get it from cheaper if you go to a market and buy it for 25p. You know, I go to the market sometimes if I need to. You know, I found powdered milk actually is even cheaper, so sometimes I just stick with that. But, you know, I buy stuff only if it's reduced, and I'm trying to think, like, why do I do this? And I think partly the reason why I only buy food if it's massively reduced, or if I desperately need it, or even if I did desperately need it, you know, I would rather travel the 15-20 minutes to the cheapest store that I can get, rather than go to the local shop to help the locals. It's because I don't like humans. I've had to spend my whole life where I'm just feeling abandoned, rejected. Okay, not my whole life. It probably this problem. Okay, I wasn't happy in uni. I wasn't happy in boarding school. I wasn't happy for out of it. So I can say I was miserable my whole life. And okay, yes, there are parts of my childhood where we would go on holiday and would have a good time. So if I'm saying I was miserable my whole life, okay, yes, there are times in my upbringing where I was okay. But there are also times where I was just wanting to die or wanting to kill myself. Or I was pretty much suicide. My throat's gone. I was pretty much suicidal throughout my whole boarding school time, but I was only suicidal when I was actually in that school. So I was in that school Monday to Friday, and in the weekends I'd go back home. But for a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old to have to get on a I think often actually my dad took me. If you want to know why I've known so many songs, it's because usually, this is another thing I wanted to say, which is, why do I know so many songs? It's because I literally just live for music, and that's it. Like when I was going to shops, or when I was going places, going to boarding school in this sort of 2-hour car journey, you know, you'd always have the radio on, and music was the only thing that I focused in. When I go into shops, you notice what song they're playing. Any shop you go into, you would see that often they play music. If you go into a cafe, often they're playing music. And I think because I didn't really have that many friends, my whole life, I've only ever been followed by the music. So if I go into a shop, okay, I'm looking at stuff, but part of me is actually just listening to the music and enjoying kind of the radio and what they're playing. And so, you know, there is good and bad. And the bad is that I am feeling completely isolated and cut off, and just feeling like the music is about the only thing that I really enjoy about life. But yeah, this anger and hatred that I'm feeling towards people, it makes me not want to go and spend money in the local shops. I mean, the local shop, to me, they have this basket, a trolley full of 4 items for £1. Okay, it's all past its sell-by date, but the only time I go into a shop is to go into that thing. And it's annoying though, because I know that the shop owner, one time I went in there, the shop owner said that guy was actually massively in debt, and I did feel kind of sorry about him being massively in debt, and me literally only going into the shop to buy 4 items for £1. And yeah, I've how many if you ask me, other than the money that sometimes my uncle has given me money to go into that shop, but if you ask me how many times I've walked into a newsagent to buy something at full price, it's literally never. I've never walked into a newsagent to buy something at full price, and I a lot of people do, and I'm just, why wouldn't I? And okay, I do like the local one in my one, so I don't want I don't want people to think that it's an insult to him. But I think it's something that I've got into a tradition of doing ever since I started doing, ever since I didn't have the money when I was in Hampstead, and I liked Hampstead. But yeah, local newsagents, they're always way more expensive than the normal ones. So I'd always go to the cheap ones because I didn't have money, and then I started being on the dole and being depressed. And I think this depression that said, you know, I'm not going to spend more money than I have to. And then I think when I started doing massage, I actually started to develop an extreme hatred for humans, and this kind of made me not want to go into local shops, not want to. I never ever spend money in local shops. There was like a really nice bread shop in Hampstead. I would never go and spend £3 on it, or £4 on a loaf of bread. And now if that shop was open, they'd probably be charging about £5-6 for a loaf of bread. I think there is still a bread shop there, but yeah, I never ever shop at full price items, and I think partly the reason why I don't do this is because I hate society. I hate the people around me, and I guess when I've done these travellings, sometimes my dad, when we was kids, we used to travel around England and we'd go to lots of nice villages, and I think I always felt like that was so much better. That was so much better than these. Then Hampstead was nice. Hampstead was a very nice place, but London in general is because I was cheap shopping. I guess I would always go to the cheaper areas. You know, there's Kilburn, which is kind of there's more Islamic people on Kilburn High Road, and that's where I'd do most of my shopping. But I didn't like those people. I was just there because that's where the bargains were. But I think because I was developing this hatred for humans because of not being able to get a job, I feel like that's I just started to develop this sort of hatred towards society, and hence this sort of need to not use local shops because I don't like anyone in them. I don't want to help anyone in them. They're not helping me, so I don't want to help them. And I think my hatred for humans has just grown and grown and grown over the years, and it's developed into you could say that I'm not wouldn't go into these shops because I just feel too poor. But I think this root of why I don't shop at full price items is more because I don't like the idea of giving someone something when I don't feel any of these people gave me anything. They never helped me, so I don't want to help them. If giving them, buying sugar for £1.50 when I know I can get it from Poundland for £1, I'm going to go to Poundland because that's cheaper, and I don't want to give my extra 50p to the local shops. Like it's just, call it selfishness, but it's not. I think it's rooted in my deep hatred for absolutely everything.